Karen really thought of herself as a drummer.
Is that right?
Which is amazing to me. Didn't she know how well she sang?
She did, but I'd heard stories through the years that Bing Crosby always thought of himself as a golfer who sang. And Karen, for as much as she loved to sing, and it was inborn, obviously.
Yeah.
Beneath the glow of fame and the beauty of her voice, a darker tale quietly simmered. Karen Carpenter wasn't only the shining star of her generation, her life was also a quiet, painful descent into isolation and unspoken struggles. Whispers of family tension, rigid control, and disturbing truths have lingered in the background for decades. At long last, her brother Richard Carpenter, her musical partner and closest ally, has stepped forward to reveal the real story hidden behind the fame.
Close, because it brought out the greatness in Karen and my arranging abilities and everyone who was involved in making.
In the city of New Haven, Connecticut, Karen Carpenter came into the world on March 2nd, 1950. Just 4 years before that, on October 15th, 1946, her brother Richard had been born. Agnes Ruhr and Harold Bertram Carpenter, their parents, barely got along and rarely paid much emotional attention to their children. Karen often felt invisible in her own home, as Agnes clearly gave all her love and approval to Richard. Their father, on the other hand, had a strong love for music that set him apart from his wife. His enormous music collection, ranging from rock and jazz to soul and classical, left a lasting impression on both children. Besides his taste in music, he also made sure both kids had a chance to learn instruments early in life. Richard showed impressive musical ability as a child, beginning with the accordion and then smoothly switching to the piano. Karen, however, wasn't interested in being on stage. She enjoyed simply sitting and listening to songs. It wasn't until high school that she slowly discovered a genuine love for singing and musical instruments. Despite the normal sibling bickering that popped up, their relationship remained tight-knit through the years. Known for her playful energy, Karen loved joining baseball games in the neighborhood and was often chosen before Richard, which irritated him now and then. As time went on, Agnes made her favoritism even more obvious. Anytime Richard felt down or angry, she would defend him fiercely, while Karen got the blame for everything. Once Richard turned 16, his piano talent had reached a level that made the family believe he could turn professional. Hoping to give him a real shot at success, the Carpenters moved to Southern California in 1963. Karen didn't want to leave her friends behind, but her feelings were brushed aside during the move. Their entire attention shifted to making Richard's dream of becoming a musician come true in the new city. Richard soon started gigging at local clubs, even lying about his age since he wasn't legally allowed to perform. Trying to escape physical education class, Karen randomly joined the school band, a decision that unexpectedly unlocked her love for drumming. In 1965, Richard launched a group called the Richard Carpenter Trio, with Karen as the drummer and Wes Jacobs on bass. The siblings had many fiery arguments, but Richard never agreed to add Karen's name to the band's title. Still, the trio became a standout in their local music scene, thanks to their electric covers and original music by Richard. It all started to turn in 1966 when they snagged a victory at a major California music contest, which earned them a contract with RCA Records. But unfortunately, fate had other plans. Their smooth jazz sound couldn't stand up to the booming rock craze sweeping across America. As interest waned, RCA eventually pulled the plug on their contract, which led to the group's quiet breakup. Still, despite this crushing blow, Richard held on to hope and formed a new group named Spectrum, centering their sound around vocal harmonies. Yet once more, fortune did not favor them, and Spectrum quickly faded into the shadows without leaving a mark. That said, during this challenging period, Richard stumbled upon something remarkable. Karen's voice wasn't just good, it was spellbindingly clear. Believing her voice could be their golden ticket, Richard encouraged Karen to step up as the main vocalist. Back then, 17-year-old Karen tipped the scales at 143 pounds, about 65 kilograms, slightly above the beauty ideals of the time. Following a modest 11-pound, 5 kilograms weight loss through dieting, she started getting a flurry of compliments, which fueled an unhealthy fixation on staying slim. Then came a pivotal moment in early 1969 when a friend submitted their demo tape to a major record label. Shortly after, Herb Alpert, famed trumpeter and co-founder of A&M Records, was deeply moved by Karen's haunting vocals. Wasting no time, he signed them to the label, though Karen's youth meant her parents had to co-sign the deal since she was still under 21. Their official debut happened on October 9, 1969, with the release of their first album, Offering, where Richard sang most of the lead parts. However, the album fell flat commercially, which raised doubts among the A&M team about the pair's future. Even with mounting pressure to cut ties, Herb Alpert never wavered and kept his faith in their talent alive. Thanks to his belief, the path was cleared for the Carpenters to rise into one of the most beloved duos in music history. Beyond producing, Alpert played a crucial role in sculpting their career and helping them climb to stardom. Married to singer Lonnie Hall, famous for duets like Corazon and Katanas with Camilo Sesto, Alpert had music in his bones. Yet, perhaps his most lasting gift to the Carpenters was giving them a song that would define their legacy. They longed to be close to you. Although several renowned artists, including Richard Chamberlain, Dionne Warwick, Dusty Springfield, and even Alpert himself had recorded it, none made it a hit. But Alpert sensed that Karen and Richard could breathe new life into the tune. And he was absolutely correct. Despite their initial reluctance, the siblings gave the song a shot and recorded their version. The track was released on May 14, 1970, and almost instantly captured the hearts of listeners nationwide. Within half a year, Close to You had moved 3 million copies and, on July 25, 1970, claimed the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Their momentum didn't stop there. By the end of 1970, Richard found inspiration from a wedding commercial jingle on TV. From that fleeting snippet, he built a new song titled We've Only Just Begun, symbolizing hopeful beginnings in love. Just 3 months after their breakout hit, the song dropped on August 21, 1970, and made another huge splash. The touching ballad soared to #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, second only to Simon and Garfunkel's iconic Bridge Over Troubled Water. Selling over 1 million copies, the song also clinched them 2 major Grammy Awards in 1971. Just a year after their quiet beginnings, the Carpenters exploded into international stardom, gaining both widespread fame and increasing wealth. Their second studio album, Close to You, which dropped in August 1970, featured both hit tracks and instantly connected with listeners everywhere. Almost overnight, Close to You turned into a cultural phenomenon, solidifying the Carpenters' place among the elite in pop music. As their popularity soared, Karen Carpenter released For All We Know on January 15, 1971, capturing hearts with its tender melody. The song climbed the Billboard Hot 100, peaking at #3 and further boosting their musical acclaim. Not long after, on April 23, 1971, the Carpenters added another gem to their collection by releasing Rainy Days and Mondays, which rose to #2. Following its success, their emotional ballad Superstar also landed at #2, showing the world their consistent ability to touch souls. These powerful songs found their home in The Carpenters, their third album, released on May 14, 1971. This was the first record to feature the now iconic Carpenters logo, an image that would come to define their brand. Though Karen's voice was the heartbeat of the duo, she preferred staying behind the drums during live performances. Richard and the supporting musicians would typically take center stage while she remained seated. This dynamic faced pushback in early 1971 as fans and critics alike called for a change. Eventually, Richard conceded and let Karen step forward, allowing her voice and presence to take the spotlight. From that turning point, Karen's presence began to shine even brighter, gradually becoming the centerpiece of the Carpenters. On June 19, 1972, the duo reached a creative peak with the release of Goodbye to Love, which quickly gained popularity. The standout feature of the track was Richard's fuzz guitar solo, a daring innovation that broke musical norms at the time. That electrifying guitar sound made Goodbye to Love one of the earliest examples of a power ballad, changing the genre's future. It was included in their fourth album, A Song for You, released that same June and became a cornerstone of their discography. The album spawned several more hits. Hurting Each Other climbed to number 2, It's Going to Take Some Time reached number 12, and Top of the World soared to number 1. Even the political world took notice. On August 1, 1972, they performed at the White House after receiving a personal invitation from President Nixon. This prestigious event was a major landmark in their journey, placing them on a national pedestal. On stage, they were the embodiment of the American dream, flawless, elegant, and deeply beloved. Behind the curtains, though, their personal struggles painted a very different picture from the one they shared through their music. To deal with his insomnia, Richard turned to methylqualone, a legal sedative in the US at the time. But what started as a solution quickly spiraled into a dangerous dependency that took control of his life. This drug later gained notoriety through The Wolf of Wall Street, serving as a chilling reminder of its risks. Meanwhile, Karen began an intense fixation on her weight, triggered by a hurtful article and an unflattering photo. The critique pierced her confidence and sparked a relentless cycle of harmful dieting and body image obsession. Despite grappling with addiction, Richard kept his career moving forward. He poured his passion into their music, believing that nurturing Karen's gift could see them through any storm. His commitment eventually bore fruit. On May 1, 1973, the album Now and Then was released, cementing the Carpenters' reign in the music charts. As their fame climbed to new heights, Karen's health quietly began to falter behind the spotlight. By 1974, she had dropped down to a fragile 99 pounds, roughly 45 kilograms, her weight loss masked by secret habits and an increasing preoccupation with control. What was once a lively and radiant young woman began to shrink before everyone's eyes, her body growing more frail with each passing day. Even as she encouraged Richard to seek professional help, Karen turned away from confronting her own demons. She insisted that stress was the only culprit behind her appearance, but the truth ran much deeper and more dangerous. At the time, anorexia nervosa was barely understood, and Karen battled it in silence, hiding her condition behind layers of clothes during public appearances. Though audiences saw a glowing performer on stage, they couldn't see the deep toll it was taking on her behind closed doors. Her condition steadily worsened, yet the Carpenters continued working and even released Horizon on June 6, 1975. Rumors swirled among fans and press alike, many assuming Karen's sunken features were due to cancer. In her relentless pursuit of thinness, she began misusing ipecac syrup, unknowingly putting her fragile health in greater danger. Tragically, her family remained in the dark about just how much she was suffering beneath the surface. By 1976, their 7th studio album, A Kind of Hush, was released on June 11th, but it didn't live up to the success of their earlier works. Still, the duo had already shaped music history, having sold more than 150 million records around the world. Karen's voice, hauntingly beautiful and deeply emotional, earned her a place among the most cherished female vocalists of all time. Yet despite her success, there remained a deep emptiness in Karen's heart that stardom couldn't fill. Though she dated several well-known men, love seemed to elude her time and again. Then in the early 1980s, she crossed paths with Thomas James Burris, a real estate developer 9 years older than her. They met at a fashionable restaurant where Burris impressed Karen with his smooth demeanor and self-assuredness. But beneath his charming exterior, Burris harbored a secret. He was deeply in debt and seeking a financial escape. Emotionally vulnerable and eager for connection, Karen quickly fell headfirst into the relationship. Soon after, Burris proposed, and the couple planned a grand wedding on August 31, 1980, at the Beverly Hills Hotel's Crystal Room. At 30, Karen believed she had finally found the stable family life she had always dreamed of. But mere days before the ceremony, her dreams were crushed when Burris revealed he had undergone a vasectomy and couldn't father children. Heartbroken and confused, Karen wanted to back out of the wedding immediately. However, her mother firmly objected, insisting it was too late to cancel with guests already invited and plans underway. Longing for her mother's acceptance, Karen reluctantly went through with the ceremony. That painful decision would ultimately mark a tragic turning point in her life. Right after tying the knot, Boris began to show his dark side. He quickly burned through Karen's savings, blowing massive amounts on luxurious indulgences. To make matters worse, he didn't just mistreat her emotionally, he also hurt her physically, dragging her into a world of torment. In less than a year, the suffering became unbearable, and Karen finally decided to end the marriage through divorce. But even after walking away, the pain lingered like a shadow, scarring her deeply. Though her health was already deteriorating, she became obsessed with staying thin at any cost. She upped her intake of laxatives dangerously, swallowing as many as 90 pills each night, and misused thyroid medications in a desperate attempt to boost her metabolism. The more she tried to tighten her grip on her body, the more control she actually lost. By the time 1981 rolled around, the damage was no longer something that could be kept hidden. Driven by the realization that she couldn't fight alone, Karen decided to seek expert help. Ignoring her family's disapproval, she made her way to New York to meet Stephen Levinron, a top authority on eating disorders. There was a brief period when it felt like she might finally be turning a corner. However, just as things seemed to be looking up, fate had a cruel twist waiting in the wings. Karen Carpenter's final chapter became a heartbreaking tug-of-war between faint optimism and grim truth. Years of silently wrestling with anorexia had brought her to the point of needing psychological intervention. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Levinron arranged a family therapy meeting that included her brother Richard and their mother Agnes. He didn't just speak about medicine, he made it clear that Karen needed emotional support more than anything. Richard, always protective of his sister, opened up about his fears and tried to show how much he cared. But what left the deepest wound was her mother's cold detachment. The love Karen had chased all her life remained out of reach. Agnes's lack of response was a silent blow, cutting deeper than words ever could. In September 1982, as her body began to fail her completely, Karen was admitted to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. Doctors hoped to save her by administering intravenous nutrition to help her regain weight quickly. But the very treatment meant to rescue her became another threat. Her body, weakened by years of deprivation, couldn't handle the sudden change. Her heart, worn out from the toll of self-starvation, was dangerously close to giving out. Even through the pain and exhaustion, Karen didn't abandon her passion for music. Her last time on stage came on December 17, 1982, at the Buckley School in Sherman Oaks, California. No one in the room that day could have guessed they were witnessing the final spark of a voice that had once lit up the world. It was a quiet morning on February 4, 1983, when everything took a devastating turn. Agnes stepped into Karen's bedroom, only to find her daughter lying unconscious on the cold floor. She was immediately taken to the hospital, but despite every effort from doctors, nothing could bring her back. Her heart had already stopped, and just like that, her young life was cut short at the age of 32. Fast forward 6 years to 1989, and CBS took a step toward honoring Karen's life through film. The biopic aired across the nation, but it only scratched the surface of her true story. Richard and Agnes chose to omit the more painful parts, especially Karen's lifelong struggle for her mother's affection and the turmoil at home. Rather than confront the shadows, they painted a picture of Karen as forever glowing under the stage lights. In the beginning, Richard struggled to face the full weight of his sister's loss. But he soon embraced the role of protector and storyteller for Karen's musical journey. He spent countless hours reviving old recordings, perfecting sound quality, and ensuring their work found new audiences. Because of his tireless work, the Carpenters' music found fresh life across different generations. As time went on, Richard also began to open up about lesser-known truths. During a recent sit-down interview, he revealed, Karen was so much more than her heavenly voice. She was a woman carrying invisible wounds. He spoke of the silent battles she fought daily, hidden behind the applause and flashing cameras. By sharing these moments, Richard gave the world a deeper understanding of the love and pain they shared as siblings. One of the most jaw-dropping moments came when Richard finally addressed a rumor that had circled for years. He confirmed that Karen was overwhelmed, not just by external pressures, but by expectations from their family and herself. "I saw subtle changes in her," he recalled, "but none of us fully grasped the severity of her internal battles." Sadly, once the family realized how serious things had become, time had already slipped away. A major turning point in honoring Karen's artistry arrived in 1996 with the long-awaited release of her solo album. Though recorded in 1979, the project had been shelved and kept from the public until years after her passing. Listeners were given a rare look at Karen's raw emotions, creative dreams, and untapped potential through each song. This album, though bittersweet, showcased a bold artistic path she had never been allowed to explore. Richard later reflected on what might have been if only things had turned out differently. He said Karen was desperate to escape her boxed-in image and chase something more musically adventurous. But forces around her, both personal and professional, kept her from stepping into that space. If only her solo album had seen the light while she was alive, perhaps her story would have ended differently. Though her life ended far too soon, Karen's voice still echoes in the hearts of millions. Her musical legacy, etched into every soft melody and tear-stained lyric, remains impossible to replace. She gave the world songs filled with both warmth and sorrow, resonating with listeners who still feel her presence. Even though the pain remains, her music continues to uplift and inspire across time. So what are your thoughts on the highs and lows of Karen Carpenter's life? Have Richard's confessions offered you a new lens through which to see her? Drop your thoughts in the comments and make sure to subscribe for more deeply moving untold stories on our channel.